Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and tonight I have a handful. I guess I have every spec. 10.1 Warlock PTR Tier Sims, Destro Demo Affliction, and some interesting talent combinations in single target. I guess the best ones so far in 10.1. Some are good, some are bad, some are very cursed. But yeah, if you have any questions about how tier is looking, compared to last tier or whatever, tonight's video should answer all of that for you. Now, off the bat here, I did not run these sims. Malacath did. He works on APLs, all that stuff in the lock Discord. He posted them in my Discord today, looked at him, verified him, talked to him. He said it was cool to use them here, so credit to him, not to me, but we can look at them and talk about the builds and all that, and yeah, go from there. Like always, weak auras, add-ons, all that stuff down below. Twitch and Discord links are all for free for you guys if you want them. And heads up, the Warlock 10.1 Warlock spreadsheet will indeed be going live on Patreon. I mentioned it a few days ago. To the Tier 3 Felgar rank or higher in the next couple of days. Should be this weekend. I don't have internet right now, so if you see this video, I uploaded it through my phone, being tethered to my computer. But yeah, hopefully in the next 48 to 72 hours, that should indeed be up. Once again, for the Tier 3 Felgar rank or higher Patreon, if you want early access to that. And yeah, with that being said, let's get into it. All right, so getting right into the Demonology Sims, the most exciting spec in 10.1 for Warlocks, I think, the coolest tier set, all of that. For those who don't know, very briefly, the two-piece for Demonology in 10.1, Demon Bolt damage increase, and every bolt you cast, Demon Bolt that is, reduces the cooldown of Grimoire Felgar by 1 second. This means Grimoire now syncs with every single Reign of Tyranny Tyrant. Makes it feel much better rotationally, more exciting. The four-piece increases Grimoire damage by 20%, and when Grimoire Felgar is active, all your demons also do 20% more damage. This week, they fixed this bonus to now also work with Tyrant extensions. So if your Grimoire is extended by Tyrant, you have that bonus amp for the entire extension of Grimoire. It is a strong set. It feels great to play with. It's very exciting. Now, the Sims here. So all of these Sims here that say no T30, this is no tier at all. No T29, nothing. This is a baseline, I believe, 421, just generic Warlock profile. No tier at all impacting these three Sims here. This basically gives you a ground level look at what Reign of Tyranny, Nether Portal, Sack Souls, Spell Covenant does with no tier. Same for Reign of Tyranny Hatred and same for Rot Portal Expendables, right? Because the highest main build here is this, just with tier versus not. So here is where Vault currently is, playing the highest main build this patch and heading into next patch. Reign of Tyranny, Nether Portal, Sack Souls, Spell Covenant. A miserable build. We'll look at that in a minute here, but it is the highest main build. So currently, Vault of the Incarnates tier, 96,271. The numbers here aren't like the end-all, be-all best numbers for 10.1. It's using an older profile. And they clarify as well, the gear, the eye level is the same across every sim here. It's playing the exact same gear, even when it comes to tier. All the tiers 421 in here, as well as in here. There's no eye level increase on T30. This is just the raw bonus giving this increased damage, right? So, getting into it all here, the highest main build currently in Vault, 96,271 roughly. Tier 30, Aberrist tier, the highest simming build for Demo looks to be Reign of Tyranny, Nether Portal, Sack Soul, Spell Covenant at 106,860, looking at about an 11% DPS increase over what Vault is giving with its current tier. Not surprising, Vault tier is okay for Demo, not incredible, not terrible, it's fine. Feels decent to play with, but this tier is certainly more powerful. It feels better than Vault as well, which is cool. But the unfortunate part is that this build is utterly miserable to play with, and this build was the highest simming build when it came to Demonology in 10.0 in single target, but we realized pretty quickly that you just don't play Demonology in single target. It is the Fel Covenant, Sack Souls, Nether Portal, Tyrant build, which brings Demon Bolt damage, it brings Portal damage, it brings Tyrant damage. It makes sense this build is the highest simming. I'm a little surprised that a build playing like in Torrent and Expendables isn't a bit higher or closer. There is one pretty close, to be fair, but I guess it still sort of makes sense. The two-piece does buff Demon Bolt, and yeah. Now, the cool thing about this build is that you're playing Portal, all that stuff here, and the way this build works, I mean, this is the actual profile here. With CDs and Lust and everything, you burst to 400k, right? This is how Demo works. 400k, you're a Venthyr Boomkin, then you're definitely a Venthyr Boomkin doing 50k DPS, but you have a Tyrant again here, a minute and a half later, 158k, down to a solid 47k here. Then you go Portal again here at about, 230-ish or 330-ish to a whopping, quarter mil, then back down to 50k, and then there's Tyrant again, and welcome to Demonology, right? Now, the second highest simming build here is Demo, Reign of Tyranny, Immutable Hatred, and the third highest build here is Demo, Reign of Tyranny, Nether Portal, Expendables. Now, Reign of Tyranny, Immutable Hatred, to be fair, is only about 1.2k DPS behind the Fell Covenant Sack Souls build, and as far as Fell Covenant is annoying to play with, and it's very punishing if you mess the rotation up. If Fell Covenant falls, you lose a lot of damage. And yeah, 1k DPS, there's a decent difference there, but at the same time, I think the ease of play plus the general sustain damage that this build can bring here with Immutable Hatred compared to what this build does with Portal could be the better choice overall. So pulling up this build here is once again the Fell Covenant Sack Souls build, all that. This is what Reign of Tyranny, Immutable Hatred looks like. No Fell Covenant, no Sack Souls, no Nether Portal at all. You're playing in Torrent Armaments, Infernal Command, Immutable Hatred, going in the Tyrant tier, 1 point in Expendables, 1 point here in Pact of the Antmother. I am surprised this point is not in Nether Portal. I haven't run all the Sims across the board. He ran these Sims. I wouldn't be surprised if Nether Portal is the better play here over Pact, but at the same time, Pact can bring a pretty high end, and looking at how strong Imps are, it might make sense to put it in Pact. We'll test with it more at some point and run some Sims, but either way, this build here, no Nether Portal, no Fell Covenant, no Sack Souls, being only 1000 DPS, 1.2k roughly behind what Nether Portal can do, it makes me want to play this build, at least contemplate giving it a shot. Now, let me find this build here briefly. And jumping into this build, the burst here, not as high, right? About 275k comparatively to 375 or whatever Nether Portal did. But the thing with this build, you sustain more damage due to Immutable Hatred. Nether Portal was sustaining 55k, 50k, even 48k. This build sustaining 64, 65, a Valley here at 58. This is like the highest Portal sustained with Sack Souls outside of, you know, this is like this right here in this Valley is higher than what, you know, the Fell Covenant Sack Souls build sustained overall, right? Which is right here. You're looking at 55, 54, sub 50 right here, right? That's the difference. Now, if you need a very strong on-demand burst profile on pull every 3 minutes with Portal, might be a Portal angle. But like I'm saying, this build sustains more. It might not peak as high at 400k, but it peaks at 280, peaks again here at 180, peaks again at 1, or about 2 here, and again at about 2. You don't have portals here. This is just Tyrant. With Lust, Tyrant, Tyrant, Tyrant. Everyone has a Grimoire in it, right? With this build being only 1.2k off, I am leaning towards playing this build quite possibly. Now, you also have this build here, Demo, Reign of Tyranny, Nether Portal, Expendables, which looks like this, and this is a very similar build to what I've been playing on PTR if playing Portal. This actually is the same build I'm playing. Going into Portal for Pit Lord, all that stuff, Tyrant for Reign of Tyranny, putting a point in Antorin, putting a point in the Expendables. And this build damage profile looks relatively similar to what this build does with Fell Covenant and Sack Souls. You're bursting to, you know, about 360k, sustaining about 55k, sub that 49k. This is once again a Portal here, a Tyrant. You can see the difference here, right? Now, different fights dictate different profiles. At the same time, I would assume Nether Portal builds are better for power infusion than non-Nether Portal builds. But regardless, Demo is likely a very strong PI target next patch. It already is the strongest target in game with Reign of Tyranny, and Portal just builds upon that even more with Pit Lord and things being buffed by your tier set. And it also, the spec feels great to play. I'm not surprised seeing Portal on top, but we've tested both these builds on PTR in various forms, basically being like Portal versus no Portal. And if you exclude the Fell Covenant build here and say this build is the highest, once again, there's only about 1.2k disparity between Reign of Tyranny Hatred, which sustains more, and Reign of Tyranny Portal, which bursts more, but doesn't sustain as much. So we'll see where it goes. Different damage profiles, customizable. At the same time, if you're looking to play a cleave-based build, whether you're playing Hatred or Nether Portal, the Sack Souls Covenant build is really hard to pull points out of. It's hard to find floater points. You can put like Shadow's Bite here into Implosion, but you also want to find a point for Dreadlash. At times, you want to try to find a point for like Demonic Calling and things. It's rough because you want to have Sack Souls. You want to have 2 points of Fell Covenant. You want to have other things. It's hard to pull points for Imp Gang Boss at the same time. These builds, you're just playing it. So in a pure patchwork setting, once again, this build could be a little bit higher, but at the same time, I'm probably going to lean more towards one of these two and just see where it goes. But Demo, looking pretty solid, like we thought. All right, now changing gears, getting into Destro here. Don't be alarmed. Actually, maybe be alarmed. IC does indeed mean internal combustion. We'll get to that in a minute. Destro's tier set, it does still revolve around Channel Demon Fire. Now, whether you like it or hate it, it is what it is. I think if there was more time for the patch, it should possibly be overhauled to not be CDF based. But I will say that I do think it's likely in the best form it can be if it remains tied to CDF. It is a universal damage increase. When you have your 4-piece, it buffs every spell you cast, basically. It does buff Chaos Bolt. It's whitelisted for the fire effect. It feels awkward casting it in AoE. It feels awkward casting it in Spread, Havoc Cleave. They should buff the 2-piece. The 2-piece is probably pretty unimpactful. It's like, just, hey, you want the 4-piece or nothing for Destro, but at the same time, you're probably playing Demo and Aff too, so there's that. But yeah, so getting into the Sims. Once again, these Sims here, no tier means no tier at all. No Vault, no Aberrus. A good general starting baseline for this. Now, from what I've seen, these Sims do indeed show internal combustion as being your best option. I have not run every combination. Once again, these aren't my Sims, but one of your better options, I should say. Not the best one, but close-ish. Now, I don't believe it's optimized around internal combustion, is what I've heard. There's a difference here by about 2.25k, which, hey, that's solid if you're not a fan of IC. If they optimize more around IC, it could catch up, but we'll see what happens. So getting into these here, jumping right in, here's Vault Tier, right? So it looks to be about a 2.3% increase over what Vault Tier is, like Vault 4-piece versus Aberrus 4-piece. Once again, it's not terrible. Comparatively to having no tier on, it's about an 8% DPS increase. I mean, it might not feel great to cast and everything. I'm in the same boat, I understand, but I mean, it's not a terrible 4-piece. 8% DPS increase is okay-ish. Looking at the build here, though. So, tier 30, we have T30, Destro, Raging Demon Fire, SF, Ruin, which is sitting right here. Let's grab this build and we'll paste it in here. So, here is your current highest simming build for Destro. You're playing, for the most part, the same bottom tier talents. You're playing CDF. You are playing Raging Demon Fire, which is interesting. I didn't think we'd play this, but at the same time, it sort of gets you out of... you're not playing Pandemonium or Cry Havoc at times in those single target settings. It's sort of a relatively impactful, fine point dump. It brings you through to Flashpoint. You get Ash and all that stuff. Same bottom talents here. 2-piece, 4-piece, Burn to Ashes, Madness, all this yada yada. And this is just Soulfire, Decimation, Ruin. There's likely a combination going into Shadowburn, Conflagration, and maybe Ruin, playing one less point somewhere, which is probably sort of close to this. I didn't run all the combinations, but this does appear to be the highest simming build of Destro. CDF, Raging, all of that. Soulfire heading into next patch. Now, like I said, there's a build that's relatively close, playing Internal Combustion, which is sitting, let's see, right about, right about here at 104,523. 104, there we go. Let's grab this. This build, so if you're a fan of Internal Combustion, one of 5 people in the world, hey, you know, there's IC for you, but it's nearly the exact same build. And once again, it's not optimized around internal combustion. The only swap here is literally entropy into combustion. Now, I'm hoping there's not much optimization to be made for this build, because IC, I don't like playing with it personally. I think it's a bit of an annoying playstyle. I will say, though, that Raging does indeed extend Immolate. It could make it a bit more enjoyable, possibly. But for the most part, the skeleton of Destro was here. It's not really changing a whole lot. The 2-piece, 4-pieces builds upon what it does already. It casts Chaos Bolts, casts Soulfires, it casts Infernal once every year, and it casts Purple Infernals every once in a while. Burn to Ashes, still good. Incinerate, still crushing. Looking at the overall breakdown here as well, pulling up the highest sim once again, sitting at 106,748. The damage breakdown, Chaos Bolt, 28. Incinerate, 22. CDF being about 10.4. The burst to about 200k roughly. Internal combustion bursting to about a little higher, about 195, which makes sense. IC is a bit more bursty in your opener, casting a bunch of bolts. It is annoying though, refreshing Immolate a bunch. Looking at the breakdown here, you've actually got internal combustion doing about 7%, CDF doing about 10, Incinerate 19, Bolt 25.8. So we'll see where that goes. There could be some optimizations made possibly to internal combustion, but either way, Destro is not really changing a whole lot. Didn't really think it would either way. It's the same thing. You cast Soulfires, you cast Chaos Bolts, you cast CDF now too, once every 15-ish seconds or however long it is for you. And yeah, same thing it's been for the last 20 years. So we'll see if it changes. But the bonus, once again, if you like CDF, hey, awesome. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. It's not great as far as like, it's not as good as Demonology. Let's put it that way. But I think if they're not going to change the bonus to be based around something besides CDF, it likely is in the best form it can be. Whether it's as good to cast an AoE as it is single target, the 4-piece is universally applicable. It increases rate of fire, Chaos Bolt, whatever you're doing. But it does feel awkward casting CDF in Spread Havoc Cleave and Mass AoE when you're capping on charge when you cast Rain of Fires instead. So for what it's worth, I also did run an Entropy versus Internal Combustion 2-target sim for Destro. I assume the build you're going to play something like this probably if you're playing Raging and all that stuff with CDF in like Spread Havoc Cleave. You could move these points, I guess, over to like Scalding Flames. I don't know if you'd be able to get Sack. Probably not, unless you dropped. I'm not even sure if you could do it, likely. But either way, when it comes to the sim, Entropy's ahead by about 1.1k DPS. It's ahead by a bit more when it comes to prio damage, by about like 2k roughly, which does indeed reflect what the sim said, you know, here as well. So we will see where it goes. But either way, if there's a lot of room for optimizations around combustion, if it's only a little bit, and even if combustion's a little ahead of entropy, I think chances are pretty high you still play entropy in the majority of settings. So when it comes to affliction, the last spec here, affliction tier is okay. Now, when I first saw affliction's tier, it increases the damage of PS and Vile Taint by 60% and reduces their cooldowns. Singularity is 33 seconds, Vile Taint is 25 with the 2-set CDR, and the 4-set gives you Infirmity whenever both are active. Now, it's a bit odd here on the 4-set. I'm not sure if it's bugged or if it's just a weird wording. It says enemies damaged by PS gain Infirmity, keywords here, for its duration, and enemies damaged by a Vile Taint gain Infirmity for 10 seconds. Now, the way Singularity works, if you pop Singularity and then cast Dark Glare, you'll have Infirmity for Singularity's duration, which is extended by Dark Glare. I'm assuming the wording on the tier means that Vile Taint should last 10 seconds regardless, but if you cast a Vile Taint and cast Dark Glare, it lasts more than 10 seconds, and your Infirmity lasts the entire duration as well. So, I don't know if it's a bug or a weird wording on the tooltip or an oversight. I don't know. It might change sims and impact things later on, but either way, this is where Aff is sitting. Now, I ran Malevolent Visionary Sims here. I included a sim here at the end. They didn't run it on their own. Haunted Soul still ends up being the best option here. I assumed that Singularity would end up being the better play here. No shard cost. It being half a minute essentially versus, you know, 45. But the thing is, if you cast Singularity on cooldown, being a 33 second cooldown, it pushes your Dark Glare back to like 225, 230-ish. Like, you have to hold it for like 15-ish seconds if you pop it on cooldown every time, being Singularity. If you play Vile Taint, your Dark Glare is basically right at 2 minutes by casting a Vile Taint with Dark Glare, a Vile Taint or two in between, lining it up with Soul Rot if you're playing it. If you're not playing Soul Rot, cast it, you know, basically on cooldown, and it still lines up pretty well with your Dark Glare. And you also have more Infirmity uptime if you're not playing it with Soul Rot, because you don't hold it for 10 seconds. If you are playing it with Soul Rot in the Malevolent Visionary build, it's not even too far behind Haunted Soul. It has a higher burst profile, pulling up Malevolent Visionary here. Actually, let's do this. Pull up Malevolent Visionary. Let's see, right about here, it bursts to about 220k with Soul Rot and Vile Taint rolling all that. Here are some peaks and valleys from Soul Rot's being cast, or sorry, Vile Taint's being cast. Peaking at about 217, 220 in your opener. If you compare us to Haunted Soul, playing Vile Taint, you're peaking at about 180, roughly, right? 181. Not as high burst, but look at the peaks and valleys here. Vile Taint, Vile Taint, Vile Taint, Vile Taint, Vile Taint, Vile Taint. All this stuff, right? So, like, you have, like, very frequent peaks and valleys comparatively to right here, Haunted Soul, Dark Glare, VT, and all that. Now, I did hear, it was mentioned to me, this is the wrong sim, it doesn't matter. It was mentioned to me that when it comes to playing Soul Rot in any Affliction sim, the APL is not built to... Basically, it'll hold PS or it'll hold Vile Taint for Soul Rot. So with the cooldown reduction on PS, it's not reacting to that properly. For example, here's the profile on PS and tier 30 stuff with Visionary. It's a pretty low sim overall. It's a pretty big DPS loss over Vile Taint. I wondered why. Here's your answer. So it casts PS on pull with Soul Rot. PS is here. There's Soul Rot. The next PS cast is not at 40 seconds. It should be right about here. The next PS cast is all the way here at about a minute 9. So it's still using the old logic of it being a, 45-second cooldown, not 33. It'll likely change things a bit. I doubt it makes it better than Vile Taint, but I mean, TLDR, if you want more burst, Malevolent Visionary, Vile Taint, Soul Rot's not too far off, but it looks like Haunted Soul, Vile Taint is indeed beating out Haunted Soul PS, casting both on cooldown by, honestly, about 1.5k DPS. Not incredibly surprising. Vile Taint, more frequent cast. With Dread Touch being 8 seconds now, it's not as hard to cast and leverage Dread Touch and Rapture windows and all that. More frequent Infirmity uptime, all the above. It might change, once again, depending on if the tier is bugged or just, worded improperly or whatever, but overall, I mean, the builds here are basically the same thing we've seen for a long time. It's Haunted Soul versus Malevolent Visionary. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That should wrap it up. Hopefully it answered the questions you had about 10.1 Warlock Tier and Sims, initial builds, all that stuff. And I guess, yeah, everything heading into 10.1. We are less than a month away from the patch hitting and about a month and 3 days from the raid opening, which is going to be a wild ride. I'd assume tuning is coming to a handful of classes. There are some classes doing a lot of damage, some classes not doing much at all. We'll see where it all lands. These builds could indeed change, so keep watching the channel for updated builds, all that stuff, obviously. If you have any questions or comments or things that I missed in this video, put it down below as well, and I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Like usual, WeakAura's add-ons, profiles offer free for you guys as well. Links to Twitch and Discord down below in the description. I think Warlock looks good overall in Avarice. I'm excited about it. We'll see where it goes. It's Demo tier, Destro tier, and then Aff tier, I guess. You can feel the difference in Demo tier. You want to obtain Demo tier from a fun playability, I guess, standpoint, right? It feels good. You want to play it. It changes your rotation. You're excited to obtain your tier for Demonology, for the gameplay that it brings. Destro tier is the opposite, for the most part, actually. CDF, but hey, what can you do? And then Affliction, you can't really feel it. I mean, you can feel Singularity cast being shorter. Can't really feel Vile Taint a whole lot. Even if you could, it's just like, it's a bit faster, I guess, cooldown-wise, but it's a damage increase. We'll play it. It's all right. So, yeah. With all that being said, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons for in the video, like always. And thank you all for supporting on Patreon, guys, 10,000 times, like usual, like always. I really appreciate it. The Warlock 10.1 PTR spreadsheet will indeed be live in a few days. The Tier 3 Fail Guard rank or higher gets early access to that on Patreon if you're interested. Should be a link up here, as well as down below. And yeah, like I said, thanks for watching, guys. I hope we've got a lot of videos planned over the next few, honestly, days and weeks coming to the channel. We've got the raid review coming up again, a 10.1 prep video, which if you're not doing prep for 10.1 now, you certainly could be. There are a few player power grinds in game currently on retail now you can do to prep for 10.1. So if you want to look at that, or I guess, find out what that is, be sure to check back in a few days. So all that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.